Another tough loss for the Philadelphia 76ers. This team is trying to be optimistic, but there is just not much to be positive on right now as they struggle once again and still only have 3 wins at this point of the season.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On 76ers. We're your hosts, Kayla Santiago, alongside Keith Pompey, with you each and every day. And you can start the season with big return to FanDuel. Now, customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com to get things started. So, an overtime loss to Houston, as we're going to dive into that game a little bit. And something that you really have to look at in that contest is the shooting struggles of Jared McCain. Once again, teams are starting to figure out how to defend him, put more pressure, and he hasn't been able to answer back so far. And then, is there any reason to be optimistic? Because right now, this team is trying to turn that positive mindset around. And right now, it's just tough to look at that at this moment. So, the 76ers, I mean, they competed against Houston, and that's something you can look at. They took them to overtime, but the biggest thing was Tyrese Maxey went off for this team, but Tyrese Maxey is one person. He ran out of gas in the end, and there was just nobody else that could really help him out. Yabusele finished with 22 points as well. If Jared McCain could have hit at least 2 or 3 threes, he was 0 for 7. Maybe they get the edge in this game, but this is the time to start winning contests. And when you have Tyrese Maxey out there giving it his all, he runs out of gas in overtime, and that's how the 76ers end up eventually falling.
Yeah. I mean, that's the game right there. I mean, it was one of those things when you look at Maxey, right? He had 39 points, but he shot the ball 34 times. He was 14 for 34. He was 6 for 12 on 3. He had 10 assists. He had 5 steals, right? He had 4 turnovers, and he had 2 rebounds, right? He played 45 minutes and 2 seconds, Kayla. Let me tell you this. He was so tired at the end of the game, after the game, that he sat in his locker, it seemed like forever. He couldn't even put on the clothes that he wore when he came to the arena. He asked somebody for, you guys have a sweatshirt? You got some sweats? And he threw that on, and then he walked out gingerly. Now, he wasn't hurt. It was just he was so tired. And you're right. It's like they relied so heavily on him. And the one thing that I will say is he took a lot of tough shots. And I'm saying to myself, can y'all just draw up a play to get him in a good position to do something? And they weren't able to do it. And like you said, they ran out of gas. He ran out of gas. And they lost for the 7th time in 8 games.
I think the biggest thing, too, when you look at it, and it was what we talked about, it goes back to not having Joel Embiid and Paul George, because how much is Tyrese going to be utilized? Well, it's going to be a lot at this point right now, and he's going to be tired. He's going to be exhausted, and I know they don't have a back-to-back coming up, but he's going to be expected to play at the same high level in their very next game and going forward this season when Paul George and Joel Embiid are out, and there's no time telling right now when they are going to be back. So that's definitely something you look at and you say, okay, is there a reason to be optimistic, which we'll get to later on in the show? But, you know, it can be tough to look at it that way because Tyrese Maxey is going to have to be that guy. And when you have games in overtime that you want to win, that you need to win, it is almost impossible when he is doing every little thing every single game. And he's not injured, but he's also coming off an injury. He looks good out there, but at the same time, that hamstring, you might be still nursing it a little bit or not wanting to push it your fullest. I mean, Tyrese Maxey hasn't really had a choice. He's had to go out there and pretty much take over ever since Joel and PG have been out coming off that injury for Tyrese.
Oh, yeah, a lot. And Kayla, you raised a great point. I mean, you know, he's coming off of a hamstring injury. You know, it's one of those things where I believe he injured his hamstring the last time because of the amount of minutes he had to play, because of his usage rate and everything. So now we look at it and you know, people will talk and they'll say how optimistic they were and yes, they played hard and everything. But my major concern until Joel and them come back is Nick Nurse basically reduced the rotation, right? He played 9 guys. But if you look at the starters, 4 of the 5 starters yesterday played for over 41 minutes. And then you had Andre Drummond playing 27 minutes. And then off the bench, KJ Martin played 22. Ricky Council, the 4th, played 27 minutes, Dagnair. And then Reggie Jackson and Eric Gordon played 5 and 7. So they're basically going to be out of the rotation, those two. They're just going to go, okay, get in. Let's see what you can do. It's going to be tough for this team moving forward until they get healthy bodies back for these guys to not get injured or to sustain their level of play. They ran out of gas by going up against a team playing a back-to-back and a team that their game went to overtime. But the Sixers were the ones to run out of gas. To me, that's a little bit of a concern just because what's going to happen moving forward with these bodies.
And that brings us to our conversation, too, that we've had a few episodes ago when we've been talking about, is this team just trying to, throw in the towel for this season, or is there some hope left behind them? Can they get some victories? Well, you can't win games when you have 3 or 4 guys out of your lineup and 2 of them being Joel Embiid and Paul George, and then your other guys, they're on overload right now. I mean, they are having to play with their bodies on the max at every time. And I know people are probably saying, okay, well, they're NBA players. This is what they sign up for. I get it, but the human body can only take so much when it goes out there on the court. And the last thing you need to do is overplay somebody and overload somebody, because then you're going to have another guy injured, and this team can't handle to have anybody else injured. I mean, it is just the injury bug going around Philadelphia right now. And I love the way Tyrese Maxey plays. He goes out there, he gives it all. He's trying to fight. And we saw that a night ago too. He gave everything he had until it was too much. And right now, just running out of gas. And my biggest worry, my biggest concern, I'm in agreement with you, is that these guys are going to get overloaded a little bit. They're going to start to get injured. Either that or they're going to need to rest at some point. I mean, when is Tyrese Maxey going to be able to rest that he's not out due to injury, just maybe a rest game here and there? It's really tough for this team right now when you look at injuries, because they're dropping like flies. And we saw that last night, how much they needed more guys behind them to be able to try to pull out that victory.
Yeah, you're right. The one thing I think that they need to work on now, though, the thing that was really tough for them and contributed to them losing the game was their foul shooting. Yeah. When you look at it, you'll say, okay, KJ Martin made, was 2 for 2. You look at Jared McCain, he was 3 for 4. Tyrese Maxey was 5 for 5, stuff like that. But overall, they shot 73.9%, 17 to 23 free throws. And there was times in the fourth quarter. Now, Tyrese Maxey did make 3 of them to force overtime. But there were times where you're looking at it, the game was in balance and guys were missing free throws. So it's kind of like, they got to help themselves. They really have to help themselves to get off of this. And they have to play better basketball. Now, believe it or not, for a team that they shot 36.4% from 3, that's pretty good for them.
I was going to say, it was higher than the Rockets. So the field goal was higher than the Rockets too. So that's something to look at, right?
That's pretty good for them when you look at it. So, I mean, they played with the energy, but, you have to take care of foul shooting. I mean, you have to do that. Rebounding, they were competitive in there until the game got late. You know what I mean? Then ended up the Rockets ended up with an advantage of 52 to 42. I mean, even down to points in the paint, the 76ers had an advantage. But it just seems like the Rockets, whenever the Sixers would try to do something and make a run, Maxey would come out and score. The Rockets would answer right back. Mm-hmm. Or if the Rockets didn't answer back, the Sixers would come back and turn the ball over or throw up a crazy shot. It was, they just need to be more consistent and take advantage of things.
More consistent, and these are the wins that they're going to need to start getting throughout the season if they want any hope of being able to have some type of postseason run once Joel Embiid and Paul George come back, because they're in a hole. We've talked about it all year. They're still in that hole right now, and these are the games that you just have to push a little bit extra and get your other guys to help you out a little bit more if they want to come out on top. So the Philadelphia 76ers still only with 3 wins on the season. They are second to last in the Eastern Conference right now. And somebody that had a really positive start to this season is starting to wind down just a little bit. It's the top of the Rookie of the Year candidate right now in Jared McCain. His shooting struggles are something that we have to touch on coming up in just a moment, because teams are really starting to figure him out. But first, hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return to FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com, and you know that it's Thanksgiving, and that means there's football going on. And right now, it's the Cowboys and the Giants, the line we are going to look at today. Dallas -3.5 favorites right now. They always get this Thanksgiving game. They're favored in that matchup. And if you think you like that line, head over to FanDuel right now. Now, these times and these lines can change within the hour. So if you believe that that is the bet that you want to place, be sure to head over to FanDuel right now. Once again, that's America's #1 sportsbook. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com today. All right, so a struggle for Jared McCain, and this is really tough to see because he was the one bright spot for the Philadelphia 76ers for quite a while there, in a good chunk of time when they were not able to win games. But you said, okay, look at this rookie. He was on top of the Rookie of the Year ladder. It's still really early in the season to be able to depict that. But no three-pointers last night, 0 for 7 from beyond the arc. And that is something that Jared McCain needs to clean up if he really wants to stay on top of that ladder. And it's a perfect example of what we saw a night ago of Tyrese Maxey running out of legs. Well, when Jared McCain, the guy you guys have been relying on for some shooting and some pop and some spark, is not giving you that, then you're completely eliminating another scorer from that rotation. Not only that, this is the second team that's been able to figure him out. So it's not only looking at Jared McCain's shooting struggles, but it's also looking at Nick Nurse and the coaching staff saying, okay, well, teams have been able to figure it out, and they're going to do the same thing game after game and come after him, especially with no Joel Embiid and Paul George. So now Nick Nurse not only has to find an opportunity for Tyrese to get open, but also, I can't, believe I'm saying this, make it easier on Jared McCain. Now, he missed some free ones out there last night, but at the same time, these teams have been able to make it really tough for him, and it's the first time he's experiencing that this season.
Exactly, and it's crazy, too, because if you look at it, think about it. A team is saying, okay, we're going to shut him down. Mm-hmm. We're going to let Tyrese Maxey do what he has to do. Hopefully he runs out of gas, but we're going to shut his co-star down, and we're going to walk away with this victory, right? I mean, now, again, they were trying to impede Tyrese, too, so it wasn't that they were just letting him roam freely. He threw up a lot of tough shots. But when you look at it, what teams are doing now, they're taking long, athletic wings and they're putting them on Jared to guard him, right? They're also running at him. They're not trying to let him get comfortable and try to get clean shots. So whenever it looks like people are looking at it and saying, oh, but he was wide open. Yeah, but he's basically rushing. He's rushing that shot because he does not want them to get there in time to block it or to run them off. So he's just rushing shots. With that being said, over the last 2 games, Jared McCain has shot 9 for 34, right? Wednesday night, he had 15 points on 6 for 19 shooting, including missing all 7 of his 3-pointers, right? In 41 minutes, 2 seconds. That's a long time. This came, after he shot 3 for 15 and 2 of 11. But Kayla, what it is he's just not comfortable. They're just running him off the spot. He's getting in the lane and they're collapsing on him, or they're clogging the lane. The one thing I will say, he did show a little improvement, because against the Clippers, he couldn't even get in the lane. This time he got in the lane. He tried to maneuver. He tried to do some things. He missed some mid-range jumpers, but also he dished out to some teammates. But I looked at it as a little bit of progression, but he still has to get there. And you are right. Maybe the Sixers got to help him out to make it a little bit easier, setting some picks, doing some things just to free him up so he can get some shots.
And on the flip side of that, I also think he needs to figure out the game plan that defenses are going after him, because this is how it's going to be now. And if you want to create a shot for yourself and you want to be able to keep those numbers and be effective, he's going to have to be the guy that says, okay, I need to figure out how in practice, if I'm super contested, get a shot up, get my release a little bit quicker, drive into the lane and be aggressive. But I think the biggest thing that I look at, especially what I saw last night and in that Clippers game as well, is something that we touched on in the beginning of this season. When it's Tyrese and Jared McCain out there, it's a really small lineup. And we saw it through one of those games in the Nets game. And we said, okay, well, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe they could be a backcourt duo that just shoots the lights out. And now we're seeing it be stopped. And I'm not saying that, this is never going to be seen again and we won't be able to see Jared McCain have other great games. We're probably going to see a few ones out there throughout the season. But at the same time, this small lineup, now teams are saying, okay, we're going to take advantage of that. We have longer, more athletic guys, more taller guys that can go out there and just really be a problem. So now, not only are you trying to figure out different defenses being thrown at you, it's also just a matter of length, a matter of how high is that hand in your face? How much can the guy in front of you step to the right and be in front of you in that athletic defensive stance and have an opportunity to completely cut the lane off that you're trying to go into? I mean, these teams are just throwing that at a lot of Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey. I mean, Maxey is a pro. He's figured it out. McCain, this is really going to make me see how he's going to be in his rookie season. He doesn't have to figure it all out in 1 year. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, in a situation like this, if you want to keep on top of that ladder, if those awards matter to you and you want to help out this team, that is something that you're going to need to really start to figure out, because these teams are not going to stop throwing it at him. They're just not throughout this year.
And here's something that, we want to say. So Jalen Green is listed as 6'4". Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you noticed, but, Jared McCain is listed as 6'3", Tyrese Maxey 6'2". There was a noticeable height difference advantage that he had. And it was weird because, they were trying to get different people on him. But from the onset, you knew that he was a tough matchup for the 76ers guards. I mean, he scored 18 of his 41 points in the first quarter. And like you said, it's going to be tough. Now, I get it. I know Tyrese took a little bit of exception and it turned into something viral when he's saying, I'm not small, I'm taller than you, the whole nine, which is great. But at the same time, if we're going to be real, it's like they took advantage of that. And, Dylan Brooks, he couldn't hit a shot, but he kept getting open, I don't know. I just feel like that the height disadvantage, and then you got Amin Thompson, a second-year player who ended up coming off the bench, scoring 19 points on 8 for 10 shooting. So, yes, McCain struggled offensively, but defensively, guys were able to take advantage of them being undersized. And, it's something that he's, like you said, it's something that he has to go through. I believe he went through this early on at Duke. He went through this in the summer league. He struggled mightily throughout the summer league. So he's coming out now. He's playing freely, and it may take him a couple games, or who knows? Maybe they may just have to limit his minutes and give him a different role. But he's confident, and I think that this will make him better in the long run. I really think that. I really believe this will make him better.
And this is the first time I'm saying this about the Sixers season, that something will be fine and will seem fine throughout the year. But I do think Jared McCain will be okay and figure it out. And I say that because if we were just going off summer league and he didn't have the start that he's had so far, I say, okay, maybe this is just who he is. It might take him throughout his whole rookie year to figure things out. But no, we've seen really good sparks. And, you can't let that confidence go too high or low, especially as a rookie. It can also be a mental game. And I think for him, he's going to try to figure this out. And I don't want people to expect either that he's going to turn it around in the next 2 games. It might take a few games, especially with different lineups going in and out, for him to be able to kind of figure out what new defenses are throwing at him, how he can manage that, how he can create his own shot. It might take some time, but I've got that confidence in the rookie because he's shown us so far what he can do on the season, and it definitely was unexpected so early on this year. So Jared McCain still trying to figure out what defenses are throwing at him. But everybody watching, or if you're listening right now, I want you to think in your mind 3 things that you can be optimistic about for the Philadelphia 76ers season. Can you name 3 things? Can you be able to come up with 3 things that you can be optimistic about? Well, think about that in just a moment, and we will touch on the 3 things, possibly if there's that many that we can look at for the 76ers season. And we've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. Seamless sharing. Invite friends and family to easily share photos via the Skylight mobile app or email. You can have an opportunity to add new photos straight from your phone from anywhere. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame across the country. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in as well. You can have $20 off your first purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NBA. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NBA. I know this is something that I asked for the holidays as well. My parents actually just got one, and I was able to visit them at home a few months ago, and I said, this is awesome. I definitely want to get one for where I'm at right now. So it makes you feel like your loved ones are a little bit closer when you can see them in those photo frames. So make sure you get one today. Okay, 3 things to be optimistic about for this team. I don't know if I can count 3. It could be the big 3, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George, but I'm not too optimistic about that, if I'm going to be honest, and if I'm going to be realistic here. I think the one thing that I can be optimistic about is that I do think that Jared McCain can find a way to turn it around. I'm excited to see that growth. But when you construct this team, you're not really looking at a rookie's growth to be the most optimistic part of your season. So the only thing that I could possibly be optimistic about is the waiting game of Joel Embiid and Paul George being healthy and being okay. But with the reports we've had, the swelling of the knee, just what we've been able to see from a medical standpoint, and a lot of people researching and just saying this is not going to end well for him if they push it too much, there's not much to be optimistic about. And I think the only thing you can look at ahead is saying, well, it's just a waiting game right now for Joel Embiid and Paul George to be able to come back healthy, because if those guys can't, I mean, your season, you might as well tank, is over.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly right. I mean, because, Nick Nurse before the game, he basically admitted that the Sixers aren't sure what to expect from an Embiid. We talk about, everybody's talking about, the 3-year extension he got. And, the fact that the Sixers sought 6 medical opinions before signing him, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone thought that the knee would be fine with their load management plan, the way that they were going to do it, right? And then so Nick Nurse was asked about that moving forward. And Nick came out and said, well, I don't think we know. All of this is on our plate. He needs to play again to see how it reacts. That's kind of where we are at right now. Again, if he gets to a point where he can play, and then the recovery, the process of when he can go again, and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, he says, then we'll understand if it's a shorter time, then all of a sudden everything's going to work out, right? They hope. To me, that doesn't sound really optimistic, right? At all. And because, Kayla, the thing about it is, like, the one thing that you have is we have to see how all 3 of these guys play well together. Not 2 of them, but all 3 of them. Right now they're 3-14, 17 games in becomes your identity typically. And they're waiting on a guy who basically had knee swelling after playing 4 games in 9 days, over 9 days. So I get it the 76ers right now, they want to like come out with, make it seem like there's a lot of confidence going on. You know, they're excited. They have all this other stuff. But to me, I find it hard to be confident when you're one player who you need to play at an extremely high level for you to go deep in the playoffs. They don't know what's going to happen with them. And Kayla, you said this earlier in this year. You asked me earlier, how many games do you think the big three will play together? Will they play more than Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant did in Brooklyn a couple of years ago? And I was like, yeah, they will. They will. I think it could be less right about now. I hate to say it, but I think it could be. So with that being said, I can't find more than one thing to be optimistic about. I just can't. I can't.
I mean, you have a sample size of 6 minutes right now, 6 minutes with this big three. And that is something not to look at and say, wow, well, I'm really excited for when they all get back together. Who knows at this point? I mean, at this rate, I think people look at this team and are expecting the worst. And I understand that the organization and they want to talk about positivity, and it can't be much easier for them to look at all these different things, people talking about how bad they've been, and they know that they're a bad organization and they're just trying to figure it out. It's a waiting game for them right now, but we're in the midst of the season right now. It's not preseason anymore, and they still don't really know what this team is going to have. My biggest fear too is that you overdo Tyrese Maxey in these situations, and then he ends up getting injured, and then you really don't have everybody playing together once again, because Tyrese is going to do everything he can possibly do, and that can be too much throughout the regular season, and it just might be as well. So when I look at this team, you're kind of expecting the worst in the situation because it doesn't sound good. And I look at Joel Embiid, and this really, really points me back to the Olympics. And this is what is consistently going to be brought up if he ends up having to be shut down for this season, because it's one of those things where he came out and said, why wouldn't I take the opportunity to compete for my country, to be able to get a gold? And I totally get that. I understand that. That's a really cool and remarkable moment. But when you look at guys like Kawhi Leonard, that not only have already won an NBA championship, but he sat out and said, I'm not going to play in the Olympics because I'm a little bit injury prone right now in my career. I'm going to have to sit out a little bit throughout my NBA season, and I want to be ready for that. Now you look at that for Joel Embiid and you say, okay, well, was winning an Olympic medal more important than winning the NBA championship? Because he says he doesn't care about awards, about those accolades, but that's caring about a big accolade, and I understand it. It's a pretty big one. But at the same time, he had to know what he was getting himself into when he competed there and saw other guys kind of opt out to take care of their physical health.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I've been saying that a lot lately. You're right. But you are. I mean, it just seems like, unfortunate, and I hate to say it, but it just seems like it seems like it's going to come out. People are going to perceive it to be a selfish act, especially, for a team that, when it's all said and done, he's going to make over $500 million playing for it. And I get it. We all want to, I mean, I would love to play for the Olympics, but at the same time, I didn't have the same knee problem either, that knowing that, things could, derail for me. But the one thing is, I'm going back to a meme that you had on X, formerly known as Twitter, when we found out that Joel had knee swelling. Mm-hmm. And the meme was of a dog. I forget the name of the dog, but he was sitting in the room and he's like, I'm fine. Everything's fine. But it was fire all around him. Yep. So that's what it's like to me right about now when the 76ers are coming out saying, yo, this was great. We everything is fine. We played hard. We played with effort. We did this. We did that. And then when you ask them, well, what was the difference of the game? Oh, well, we played hard. We just didn't close out the game. We didn't make shots when it mattered. Like, they basically ran out of gas and choked a little bit. But so to me, it's kind of like, yes, you're saying everything is fine, but the building is on fire. But you're saying, calm down, walk to the fire escape. Everything's going to work out. Calm down. But this gives me a chance, y'all. Y'all need to follow Kayla on Twitter, seriously, or X, because she's a good follow. And like I said, she has things, shows some personality. So do yourself a favor and follow her on X, and Instagram and all that too. But anyway, Kayla, again, I just can't be optimistic right now. And I get it. I know they have to be, but 3-14 is 3-14.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I love that meme because you look at it and it's just the perfect example. I say a dumpster fire, and then that's exactly what I imagine. They're all just sitting in the locker room saying, yeah, we're all going to be good. Everything is fine. And everything is just on fire for this team right now. And not in a good way. It's not on fire and they're red hot and they're blazing. It is really, really bad right now for the Philadelphia 76ers. And I get it. They competed, and I was a little bit surprised with how much they competed against the Rockets, but they still lost. At the end of the day, they still lost, and they're not in the position now where you can applaud them saying that was a really good game, really high competition. They're not in that situation right now. They need to win basketball games. At the end of the day, that's what they need to do. So thank you all so much for tuning in to the Locked On 76ers podcast here on the Locked On Network. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we hope you all have a happy and safe Thanksgiving as well. Maybe watch some football, have some good turkey, and gear up for the 76ers as they get ready to play on Saturday. We'll see you all next time.